welcome to all of you to the online lecture organized by English Formation, an academic forum for imparting knowledge, adding intervention, and engaging with a number of thought-provoking topics meant for our upgradation and learning. We've had a number of themes covered so far on this platform, right from English grammar to literature, linguistics, philosophy, e-learning, even academic writing and reading. It is time now that we move on to our next venture of engaging with the aesthetics of art and culture. Today's lecture marks sort of a beginning for the same leg. The topic for today's lecture is abstract art, history, perception, and representation. And the resource person for the day is the vibrant and very talented Ms. Anubha Mahendru, artist and entrepreneur from Delhi. Ms. Anubha Mahendru, who is actually based in Delhi, India, is also an alumna of the prestigious DPS Vasant Kunj. Started her career through school magazines, and she has a bachelor degree in history from University of Delhi. She's currently pursuing her MBA. She has a work experience of over 3 years in the field of journalism, marketing with NDTV and BML Manchal University. She's also doing her independent research study on abstract art and its different forms to increase her horizon of work. She has a remarkable experience of over 8 years in the field of art, traveling widely through India and the USA, observing flora and fauna, tribal art, contemporary abstract art. All these experiences have actually formed the undertone of her art practices, which involves majorly acrylic paints and pouring medium on canvas. She uses her emotions, situations, and perspective of life all to make a piece of art. Her works have been showcased on several e-exhibitions, social media platforms, and a number of collaborations as well. So it is now time that we hear our guest speaker for the day as we march ahead with the beauty and mystery of art and its representative contours in life. So I would now like to request our speaker for the day to kindly take over this virtual platform. And I also request the participants who have joined us to put in their questions, if at all any related to the topic, right in the chat box. So over to you, Ms. Anubha.
Thank you, Ms. Sapna. So before starting today's talk, I would like to thank Dr. Yogesh Kumar Dubey for giving me an opportunity to impart my experience on such a wonderful platform. I have been closely following EfoN, and I find this absolutely amazing that in such a short span of time, Dr. Dubey and his team has created wonders with it. So as a young artist and a student, this prospect really matters to me to a greater extent. So thank you very much once again, Team EfoN. And now I would like to share my screen with you all. Is my screen visible?
Not yet. Not yet. Yeah, now it's coming. Yeah.
Okay. So we are here to discuss today the abstract art, its history, perception, and representation. And I will present this through my own work. So let me start by asking you all a question. Actually, let me ask you a few questions. How do you define art? So take a few seconds and think about this. Is art something that is painted and then hung in a museum? Or is it the photographs that people take and publish in magazines? Or is it a classical music score? And what about literature? Is there something that comes to your mind? So to answer these questions, I have just one answer, that art is communication. And communication is a broad term. So, art can be defined as the communication between an artist and the audience. So when an author writes, he or she takes words to create a story to communicate to us. And through the story, we are able to create a picture of characters. We are able to visit new places and find meaning in what could be seen as simple events. And painter talks or even sometimes conceals through his or her lines and colors. Since I'm in the company of, a lot of literary scholars right now, it is important to see that how literature, being an art by itself, it covers so many diverse areas. It can be seen in music, photography, and painting, and these arts influence each other. So, if you ask an artist, how would you define art? The answer would be the expression or the application of human creative skill and imagination, which can be typically in a visual form, such as a painting or a sculpture, producing works to be appreciated primarily for their beauty and emotional power is called art, as you all are aware of it. So, the center of today's discussion is abstract art. And here are a few examples of different kinds of abstract art. An abstract art is a form of an art which is defined as a departure from the reality. It releases the creative energy of people and provides them with the freedom to explore their minds and emotions in a way that it was impossible to do in a traditional styles of art. The abstract is an expression connecting the feeling and the vibes. It is a different perspective than the usual perception of realism. An abstract is a non-figurative art. It is neither objective nor it is representational. So let me touch upon the history of abstract art with you all today. Abstract art has its origin in the 19th century. The period was characterized by such a vast body of elaborate representational art, which was produced for the sake of illustrating anecdotes, and also it produced number of painters who examined the mechanism of light and visual perception. The period of Romanticism had put forward some ideas about art that denied classicism emphasis on imitation and idealization, and instead it had stressed upon the role of imagination and of the unconsciousness as the essential creative factors. So gradually many painters of this period they began to accept the new freedom and the new responsibilities which is implied, you know, in you can say the amalgamation of these attitudes. So stylistically, abstract art included the movements of surrealism, Dadaism, Cubism, and Fauvism, and other abstract art forms also, which includes art informal, the stylist, neoplasticism, amongst others. Also, it was included in the collection of famous artists favoring the abstract art. And these artists are Pablo Picasso, Vasily Kandinsky, Piet Mondrian, among others. So the roots of abstract painting, though, can be found with post-impressionism. And post-impressionism was the art movement that was developed in France just before the turn of the 20th century. In these early days, you might be able to take out a picture of a person, but up close it might have been constructed on planes and angles. So Maurice Danis, a renowned French artist, he stated in 1890 that it should be remembered that a picture, before being a war horse, a nude, or an anecdote of some sort, is essentially a flat surface covered with colors assembled in a certain order. And the picture which you see of him on your screens is a self-portrait. So this statement, summarizes the feelings among the symbolist and the post-impressionist artist of his time. So now and actually these are the few famous paintings of Maurice Danis. the wave, paradise, Le Party the flag, the springtime, which is also called as the meet. So one of the major movements in the history of literature is abstract expressionism movement, and many books have been written on the same lines. So as we know that the forms of art are endless, and today I would confine our discussion to paintings only. So abstract expressionism is a post-World War II art movement in the American painting, which was developed in New York in the 1940s. It was the first specifically American movement to achieve international influence, and it had put New York City at the center of the Western world, a role which was formerly played by Paris. So right now you can see different kind of abstract paintings which were made during the abstract expressionism movement. And although it is an accepted designation, abstract expressionism is not an accurate description of the body of work which is created by these artists. Indeed, the movement comprised many differently painterly styles, varying in both technique and the quality of expression. But despite this variety, abstract expressionist painting shares several broad characteristics. They often use degree of abstractions, that is, they can depict forms unrealistically or at the extreme end, and forms not drawn from the visible world, which can also be called as the non-objective art. So they emphasize free, spontaneous, and personal emotional expressions, and they exercise considerable freedom of technique and execution to attain the goal, with a particular emphasis laid on the exploitation of the variable physical character of paint to evoke certain expressive qualities. And these qualities can be lyricism, mystery, violence, amongst others. And all these qualities are actually reflected in these paintings. So they show similar emphasis on the unstudied and intuitive application of the paint in a form of a psychic improvisation, which is akin to the automatism of the surrealist, with a similar intent of expressing the force of the creative unconsciousness in art. So they display the abandonment of conventionally structured composition, which is built out of discrete and segregable elements, and their replacement with a single unified, undifferentiated field or a network or other image that exists in unstructured space. And finally, the paintings fill large canvases to give these visual effects both monumentality and the engrossing power. So the early abstract expressionists had two notable forerunners. The first one was Ashley Gorsky, who was an American painter who painted suggestive biomorphic shapes, which actually mean life from biomorphic shapes which are often rounded and irregular, unlike the most geometric shapes using a free, delicately linear and liquid paint application, which you can see on your screens right now. The other one was Hans Hofsmann, who was a German painter who used dynamic and strong structured brushwork in abstract but conventionally composed works. Another important influence on abstract expressionism was the arrival on the American shores, if I'm not wrong, in the late 1930s and the early 40s, of surrealists and other important European avant-garde artists who were fleeing Nazi-dominated Europe. And such artists greatly stimulated the native New York City painters, and and gave them a more intimate view of the vanguard of the European paintings. So, in spite of the diversity of the abstract expressionist movement, there are three general approaches that can be distinguished. The first one is the action painting. So, action painting is characterized by a loose, rapid, dynamic, or a forceful handling of paint in sweeping or slashing brushstrokes and in techniques partially dictated by chance, such as dripping or spilling of paint directly onto the canvas, which you can see in this painting. The second one is the middle ground, which is represented by several varied styles, which are ranging from more lyrical, delicate imagery and fluid shapes in paintings. And the painting which you see on your screen right now is by a famous artist, Vincent van Gogh, and this painting is called as the Starry Night. The third form of painting is when painters use large areas or fields of flat color and thin diosphere paints to achieve quite subtle and almost mediative effects. So this style of painting is called as the Rothko style. The outstanding color field painter was Rothko, almost whose works consist of large-scale combinations of soft-edged, solidly colored rectangular areas that tend to shimmer and resonate, which is completely seen in the painting which I have put on my presentation today. So abstract expressionism had a great impact on both the American and European art scenes during the 1950s. Indeed, the movement marked the shift of the creative center of modern painting from Paris to New York in the post-war decades. And in the course of 1950s, the movement's younger followers increasingly followed the lead of color field painters, and by 1960, its participants had generally drifted away from the highly charged expressiveness of the action painters. Now, generally, we recognize 6 types of abstract art: curvilineal, minimalist, gestural, emotional or intuitional, geometric, and color related or light related. So what I prefer is emotional or intuitional and color related or light related abstract art. And now we shall move towards the last and the representational part of our discussion. So emotional or intuitional art embraces a mix of styles whose common theme is a naturalistic tendency. This naturalism is visible in the types of shapes and colors employed. The other one is color related or light related, the work which uses color or light in such a way as to detach the work of art from reality, as the object is dissolved in a swirl of pigment. So now I would like to start with my first series of work, which is a form of color related or light related. The pyramid patterns that exist in nature, they offer multipolar diabolic abstraction if one has the perseverance and the keenness to look into them. And these abstractions follow the flow of art of the unconscious and the subconscious mind. Much like the galaxy and the nebula, almost in a pictorial sense, it resembles the intricacies of the human brain. So do the wired intercalculations in a growing cell or embryo, which resembles a high degree of abstraction with a meaning. So a French artist, Henri Matisse, he stated that the chief function of color should be to serve expression as well as possible. I put down my toes without a preconceived plan. If at first, and perhaps without my having been conscious of it, one tone has particularly seduced or caught me. So this level of unconscious response to colors, or at least an unconscious channeling of colors as an expression, it shares a lot of similarities with another artist who's Mr. Kandinsky's, whose abstract work, actually for whom the colors, the sound, and the emotions and other sensory expression often blurred into one due to his condition of synesthesia. This condition means that the multiple senses are often unified into one simultaneous sensation, and this gave Kandinsky an intimate knowledge of what certain colors physically do to his being. So he used this natural understanding of the links between the chromatic scale and the human emotion to academically formulate many theories on the relationship between the two, much of which we still use today. Now I shall discuss primarily about the series of work which I have made, and it is called as Panchthatwa. So we all know that there is a constant symmetry in the universe which is reflected in the universal floral patterns and other aspects of living systems, which are built upon very intricate basic elements of life like Panchthatwa, which are the earth, water, fire, sky, and air. So one fine day, I just picked this up and unconsciously. And now I see that every element of Panchthatwa has sub-elements or emotions behind it. So I wanted to showcase and experiment the power of each sub-element and the color when it is mixed or swirled together. So let's have a look on the significance and the inherent meaning of colors in the world of fine arts in this series, where colors can also be used to express or the colors can also be used to express or express your emotions and the power of the colors. So the expressions such as feeling blue or seeing green have come about because the color has an emotional effect on the independent of its matter. So the first one is Prithvi, which is the earth. So earth as solid it is the house of soil, landscape, and flora and fauna. So this painting is made from green, blue, and red color. The green color signifies new beginnings, abundance, and nature. Blue is for calm, responsible, and sadness. And red is for passion, love, and anger. So all these elements are needed to build a strong foundation of any earthly identity. As you all know that Earth is a home and it seems to be a very natural destination for all of us. The next one is Neer. Neer is water. So water is the source of life and it flows around and within us. So the colors used here are blue and white. Blue is for calm, responsible, and sadness, and white is for purity, cleanliness, and virtue. So in popular culture, blue is often represented as a depressing color. By convention, grass is green and the water is blue. But if you have a closer look on it, they may be made up of many different colors, and artists do not have to imitate the colors they see in a physical world. In the world of fine art, blue symbolizes the vibrant life that is the water. So blue was Kandinsky's favorite color, and for him a typically heavenly color. And it becomes more claiming as it gets lighter and closer towards white. So the link here between blue and the heavens is pretty clear now. As you all have looked up into the completely blue sky, and you guys can actually imagine that. So Kandinsky does state in his book that however the color cannot be extended ad infinitum. For example, a limitless red can only be imagined or visualized. Which would mean in this example that he sets the limit of his vision literally to the horizon as the corresponding limit of the color. So the next element is Agni. Agni, which means fire. And fire is the source of energy and light. Light is most important for making the beauty of the world visible to all of us in all its vibrant colors. So the colors used here are red and yellow. Red, which signifies passion, love, and anger, and yellow, which stands for happiness, hope, and deceit. So red abstract art can be found in vast canvases of Mark Rothko. He worked in many colors, but his most powerful was red, orange, and yellow paintings that have actually captured public imagination more than the most. And even inspiring a colored Western play which is called as Red, which follows his life and practice. So the next element is Vayu. Vayu means air, which can also be linked to space and atmosphere, and it is a very powerful life source that is important to sustain life. Here the colors used are green, blue, and white. Green, which signifies new beginning, abundance, and nature, while blue is for calm, responsible, sadness, and white is for purity, cleanliness, and virtue. So, as Delhi is one of the most polluted cities in India, during lockdown, the air quality was at its best, which means that if you're responsible towards the nature, it will be calm and clean, and it will be happy for a new beginning with the abundance of oxygen to breathe. The next element is Akash, which is the sky. It is the vast open space that accommodates everything. It is made out of blue, yellow, and white. Blue is for calm, responsible sadness. Yellow stands for happiness, hope, and deceit. And here, yellow is the sun, while white is for purity, cleanliness, and virtue. So, the sky being an open space, it accommodates all our emotions and feelings. It plays the role of our best friend to whom we can say or share anything, and we know that our secrets will remain intact and the person will never judge us. I'm sure few of you can resonate with me right now. And finally, it is Kevalya. So when every color comes at its piece, it loses its own identity and it finds solace. And this piece, it represents all the elements and the emotions one goes through in a lifetime over the years. And I genuinely feel that until and unless you do not live all these emotions, you have not experienced life to the fullest. It is only after we pass these stages of life one achieves Kevalya, whose true meaning is being one with the Almighty. Now, there is one more series which I would wholeheartedly love to discuss, which is the exclamation mark. And this series is a form of emotional or intuitional art. So, exclamation mark is used when something is surprising or forceful. The modern English language is a combination of large number of words, marks, and special symbols. However, a few marks afford to attain the position which is enjoyed by the exclamation mark. And the very form of an exclamation mark instantly attracts attention and it suggests many things at once. So let me take you through the short history of the exclamation mark, which is quite interesting. So, Latin is one of the ancient languages of the world. There was a particular word in Latin for expressing joy, which was I-O. We used it in the same way, the I and O was used in the same way as we use wow nowadays. However, the word I and O was written in a horizontal pattern, and afterwards it started being written in a vertical style. It was in the 1610 that the I-O writing style was infused a primary idea of the exclamation mark in people with a literary interest. However, it took about 40 years to use it as an exclamation note. And it was somewhere during the 5th decade of the 1600s that the exclamation mark was employed to decorate the literary works. But the general public was still very apprehensive of using this mark, and it took more than a century, actually a century and a half, for this mark to be rewarded its modern position, which was finally attained in 1824. So the exclamation mark had to struggle a bit to get a decent, dedicated, and a standard name. People often found it difficult to give this strange-looking bell icon a proper name, but John Hart prepared a list of major punctuation marks of English in 1551, where he wondered a lot about the proper names for this mark, and he aptly came with a name and he named this as a wanderer. Another towering figure of punctuation was Ben Jonson, who gave it a bit refined term, the admiration mark. So with time, this humble, confused, and even dejected punctuation mark started getting noticed. The star started shining on this mark when the scientific community understood its importance and they incorporated it in their formulas. Likewise, the high personalities of the mathematicians, they also started getting attracted to the exclamation mark and deemed it logically appropriate to incorporate into their formulas as well. So ironically, the mark was invented in the labyrinths of the literary world, but it started getting a new life in a completely different universe of maths and science. So the small Bob GIF which you see on your screen right now, so this is my feeling when I see the maths and the science formulas whenever I practice maths. So for me, exclamation mark is the undetached part of our lives. It's our true friend and companion who stays with us in our good and our bad times. And this idea came to me after going through major traumatic situations in my life. And I saw that few of my family members and friends have always been with me through the thick and thin. And those people are the true people in my life. They're completely selfless. So as I've already explained the significance of colors in my previous work, here I would just like to mention that these colors which are mixed with each other, they represent the people and the situations in my life who are very close to me. And also the 4 dots which you see on the paintings, they represent the present and the past of the exclamation mark. So I would like to conclude by saying that both Panchthatwa and exclamation mark are a part of literature. And certainly, there is no one interpretation of abstract art. There can be many. More the people, more the interpretations. And few may even have similar thought as well. So it basically depends from person to person what an art piece symbolizes to them. So look at the abstract art in the same way that you would listen to a symphony. When you listen to music, you do not hold on to the notes, you let them wash over you. So let your eyes float over the painting the way the notes of a symphony wash over your soul. Let your eyes play with the painting. Let them slip around the corners, following the twist and the turns, the dripping in and out of the surface. Let your eyes dance around the paint. So rather than trying to figure out what the painting looks like, just allow yourself to be taken in by the painting. See what emotions, sensations, or memories emerge. Let your eyes relax and travel around the piece without any expectation. Imagine the colors, the forms, the materials, the surface, and how they interact with each other. Take your time. Let the painting speak to you. So now we have arrived at a division in the art world. One is the hip and the trendy on one hand, and the second one is withdrawn and out of it. But for me, abstract art has always been an open ended discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anubha. I think that was an immensely rich and kaleidoscopic presentation, I must say. As often said, that any great artwork rewinds and readapts time and space, and the measure of its success is often in the extent to which it makes you an inhabitant of that land, the extent to which it invites you and lets you breathe its strange and special air. So I believe something similar has been accomplished today via your lecture today. So I congratulate you on that. I'm sure you can leave some of those valuable observations and feedback from the participants right in the chat box. So it has been a pleasure to hear you speak. Before I call it a day, I would just like to invite any of our participants who may have any questions or any observation which they would like to ask you or maybe invite you over. Anything, participants? If do we have any questions here? Yes, we do have a question here. So the question is there anything to be identified as binary of abstract art? If yes, which plays more vital role in our lives? So that's the question.
Okay, so just give me a minute. I'm just reading the question once again. So I feel that abstract art is the art that does not, you know, a- attempt to represent any accurate depiction of a visual reality, but instead it uses the shapes, the colors, the forms, and the gestural marks to achieve its effect. As I've already mentioned in my talk, so if you look at the Kandinsky's work, he has incorporated all these marks and words and different kind of shapes which actually make up an abstract art.
All right, thank you so much. Our next question comes from Mr. Yogesh, who asks that as an artist, what painter inspires you the most, especially in terms of colors and patterns, since that is your primary area? So, who is your inspiration in this field?
So my inspiration is Mark Rothko, and I have mentioned him a lot in my presentation also. And I really like his paintings because It has an extraordinary ability to create mood, and sometimes it is ominous. Sometimes it is very uplifting, but they need time. So it is possible to immerse oneself in his work, and I feel that spending time with them is a rather spiritual experience. And of course, there are also very fine examples of the delicacies in the use of the colors and the forms which he has used, but their real power lies beyond the simplistic definition.
There you go. Thank you so much, Anna, once again. On behalf of the entire team of English for Nation, I would like to thank you for your insightful thoughts and time today. I congratulate all the members on board English for Nation for bringing out this extremely fruitful lecture for all of us to be benefited from today. Thank you to all the participants for joining us. We will soon be back with another stimulating series of lectures and deliberations. So till then, take care and goodbye. Thank you so much.
So I would just like to thank Team EfoN for giving me an opportunity once again. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.